There comes a moment in every person's life when they face a brutal truth. Your future self is either the product of your discipline or the victim of your neglect. The problem is you cannot trust yourself in the moment of weakness. You cannot rely on sheer willpower when temptation strikes. The person you will become in 5, 10, or 20 years is not a mystery. It is not some distant stranger waiting to emerge randomly. Your future self is a direct consequence of the decisions you make today. Everything you do or fail to do accumulates over time, shaping the person you will become. If you spend your days procrastinating, avoiding responsibility, and making excuses, then you are actively creating a version of yourself that is weaker, more regretful, and less capable. If instead you choose discipline, accountability, and hard work, you are forging a future version of yourself that is stronger, more competent, and more fulfilled. The problem most people face is that they disconnect from their future self. They act as if the person they will be in a decade is someone entirely separate, someone who will somehow figure things out later. This illusion leads to self-sabotage. When you skip workouts, spend recklessly, or waste time on meaningless distractions, it is easy to justify it by thinking, "I'll be better tomorrow," or "I'll start next week." But that tomorrow version of yourself is the same person as you, just living with the consequences of today's choices. Imagine standing face to face with your future self. If that person could speak to you, what would they say? Would they thank you for your discipline, your effort, and your commitment? Or would they be filled with regret, angry that you left them in a worse position? You are constantly making choices that will either empower or burden your future self. There is no neutral ground. Every decision either builds you up or weakens you. One of the most powerful ways to take control of this reality is to bring your future self into focus. When faced with a difficult decision, ask yourself, how will this affect me in a year, 5 years, 10? Most of what feels comfortable in the present moment is a trap. The pleasure of procrastination, the ease of quitting, the short-term comfort of avoiding challenges. All of these things create long-term suffering. Conversely, the struggle of discipline, the effort of self-improvement, and the discomfort of growth lead to lasting strength and confidence. People who succeed in life do not rely on motivation. They do not wait to feel like doing what is necessary. They understand that the version of themselves they are building is created in every small, seemingly insignificant moment. They recognize that success is not a single grand event, but rather a series of daily disciplined choices. The strongest, most accomplished individuals did not wake up one day and suddenly become great. They became great because years ago they made the choice to prioritize their future self over their present comfort. If you want to change your life, you must stop treating your future self as a distant stranger and start seeing them as the inevitable result of your current actions. Everything you do today is a down payment on the person you will become. Discipline is not an emotion, nor is it a fleeting burst of motivation that comes and goes with your moods. It is a contract, an agreement you make with yourself that holds firm regardless of how you feel in the moment. Those who rely on motivation to take action will always struggle because motivation is unreliable. It fluctuates based on energy levels, external circumstances, and emotions. If you only act when you feel inspired, you will accomplish little because inspiration is temporary. Discipline, on the other hand, is a system, a structure that keeps you locked into the path you have chosen, even when your emotions try to pull you away. People who achieve meaningful success do not wait until they feel like doing what is necessary. They design their lives in a way that forces them to follow through regardless of how they feel. This is why true discipline is not just about willpower. It is about setting up structures that make failure difficult and commitment inevitable. A well-crafted contract does not bend based on mood swings, and neither should your discipline. If you make a promise to yourself that you will wake up early and train, that promise should not dissolve the moment you wake up and feel tired. If you commit to working on your goals every evening, That commitment should not evaporate just because you feel distracted or unmotivated. Most people fail because they believe that their future selves will somehow be stronger, more focused, and more disciplined than they are today. This is an illusion. If you do not build discipline now, you will not suddenly have it later. If you avoid difficult tasks today, you will avoid them tomorrow. The only way to truly change is to create an agreement with yourself that is non-negotiable, one that does not allow you to back out when things become inconvenient. When you make a contract, whether with another person or with yourself, it carries weight. It is a declaration that your word means something, and once you establish that your promises to yourself are unbreakable, you build a level of self-respect and confidence that cannot be shaken. The strongest individuals are not the ones who are constantly hyped up and motivated. They are the ones who operate by principle, not emotion. They understand that success is not about intensity, but consistency. They do what needs to be done, even on the days when they do not feel like doing it. They remove the option to quit. They eliminate the possibility of negotiation with their weaker impulses. They do not let a bad mood, a lack of energy, or a moment of doubt override their deeper commitments. If you truly want to change your life, you must stop treating discipline as something you apply only when convenient. Instead, you must treat it as a binding agreement, one that holds regardless of circumstances, one that does not waver when temptation arises, one that ensures that you keep moving forward even when every part of you wants to stop. Temptation is not something that waits politely for you to be strong enough to resist it. It strikes when you are weak, when your defenses are down, when you are tired, distracted, or frustrated. If you rely on willpower alone to fight it, you will lose. The mistake most people make is believing they will have the strength to say no when the moment comes. They tell themselves they will resist the junk food in the fridge, ignore the distractions on their phone, and focus on their work when it really matters. But when the moment of decision arrives, when exhaustion sets in, when stress takes over, when instant gratification whispers in their ear, they crumble. They give in not because they are inherently weak, but because they never truly prepared for battle. The key to overcoming temptation is not to fight it head on in the moment, but to prevent it from ever gaining a foothold. If you wait until the craving hits to decide whether or not to indulge, you have already lost. If you wait until you feel like procrastinating to determine whether or not to work, you have already set yourself up for failure. The strongest individuals do not place themselves in constant temptation and expect to resist it through sheer willpower. Instead, they remove the decision entirely by designing their environment in a way that makes failure more difficult than success. If you struggle with distraction, remove the sources of distraction before they take hold. If your phone is constantly pulling you away from your work, put it in another room. If social media is stealing your time, block access to it when you need to focus. If unhealthy food is derailing your progress, do not keep it in your house in the first place. Make success the default by structuring your environment in a way that guides your behavior toward the right choices. Most people vastly overestimate their ability to resist temptation while underestimating how much their surroundings shape their actions. A person who keeps junk food in their kitchen is far more likely to eat it than someone who never brings it into their home. A person who sleeps with their phone beside them is far more likely to scroll endlessly than someone who leaves it in another room. The difference is not in strength of will, but in the systems they have built. When the stakes are high, the best decision is made before the moment of weakness arrives. This is why elite athletes, top performers, and highly disciplined individuals do not rely on moment-to-moment choices. They set up rules in advance that make their desired actions inevitable. They remove the ability to negotiate with their weaker selves. They do not ask themselves, "Should I do this?" every single time temptation arises. They have already made the decision. The path has been set. There is no debate. There is only action, because the environment they have created leaves no room for failure. Commitment is easy when there is no cost to failure. It is easy to tell yourself you will stick to your goals when no one is watching, when no one will call you out if you quit, when the only consequence is your own disappointment. But the reality is, most people do not fear letting themselves down as much as they fear letting others down. They do not fear failure as much as they fear embarrassment. This is why private promises are so often broken, while public commitments carry real weight. When you declare your intentions to others, when you make your goals known in a way that exposes you to accountability, you create a powerful psychological force that keeps you locked in, even when motivation fades. People who succeed at the highest levels understand this principle. They do not leave their goals hidden in the shadows, waiting to be abandoned the moment things become difficult. Instead, they set their commitments in stone by making them public, by ensuring that quitting is not an option without real consequences. When you burn the ships, when you remove the possibility of retreat, you force yourself to move forward because there is no way back. You eliminate the escape routes that your weaker self will try to take when the journey becomes uncomfortable. If you say you are going to wake up early and train every morning, tell someone who will hold you accountable. If you commit to writing a book, announce it publicly and set a deadline that others are aware of. If you decide to build a business, share your goals with people who will expect you to follow through. The more people who know, the greater the pressure to stay true to your word, the more visible your commitment, the harder it becomes to back out without feeling the weight of failure. People act in alignment with the identity they believe they hold. If you see yourself as weak, undisciplined, or incapable, you will make choices that reinforce that belief. If you view yourself as someone who always quits when things get hard, you will continue to quit. Identity is the foundation of action. You do not just do what you want, you do what you believe is consistent with who you are. This is why lasting change is not just about setting goals, but about shifting the way you see yourself. If you want to become disciplined, if you want to be someone who follows through, you must stop identifying as the person who struggles and start identifying as the person who succeeds. The most successful individuals do not rely on willpower alone. They do not constantly battle themselves over every decision. Instead, they embody the identity of the person they want to be. A fit person does not wake up every day debating whether or not they should exercise. They see themselves as someone who trains, and so they train. A writer does not ask themselves whether they feel like writing today. They see themselves as a writer, and so they write. The person who is truly disciplined does not think of discipline as something they force themselves to do. It is simply who they are. When you adopt this mindset, when you make your ideal habits a part of your identity, resistance fades because you are no longer trying to convince yourself to act. You are simply acting in accordance with who you know yourself to be. The mistake most people make is that they try to change their actions without changing their self-image. They say, I'm going to try to be more disciplined, but deep down, they still see themselves as someone who struggles with commitment. They say, I want to be more productive, but they continue to view themselves as lazy or unfocused. This internal conflict creates friction, making it far more difficult to sustain change. The key is to reverse this process, to see yourself as the disciplined, focused, and capable person first, and then let your actions flow naturally from that identity. Every time you make a disciplined choice, you reinforce this new identity. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you send a message to yourself that you are someone who keeps their word. This shift does not happen overnight, but it is built in the small moments. Every time you resist an urge to procrastinate, you strengthen your belief that you are not someone who gives in easily. Every time you push through discomfort, you prove to yourself that you are someone who does what needs to be done. These small victories accumulate, shaping your identity with every action you take. Eventually, discipline stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a natural extension of who you are. When you reach that point, success becomes inevitable because you are no longer forcing yourself to act. You are simply living in alignment with the person you have chosen to become. Most people fail to follow through on their commitments, not because they lack the desire to improve, but because their plans are too vague, too flexible, and too dependent on how they feel in the moment. They say they want to get in shape, but they do not specify when or how they will train. They claim they will be more productive, but they do not define exactly what work they need to accomplish each day. They promise themselves they will stop wasting time, yet they leave loopholes that allow them to justify distractions. Without clear, specific, and unbreakable commitments, every goal becomes negotiable, every action becomes optional, and every excuse becomes valid. A well-formed contract leaves no room for ambiguity. It removes the possibility of debate. If you decide to wake up early, do not just say, "I'll wake up earlier." Set an exact time, 6 a.m. every single day, no exceptions. If you commit to working out, do not just say, "I'll exercise more." Write down exactly what time you will train, which exercises you will do, and how long your session will last. If you plan to write a book, do not vaguely promise yourself you will write more. Specify the exact number of words or pages you must complete each day and make it a non-negotiable part of your schedule. The more precise your commitments are, the easier they become to follow. When expectations are unclear, discipline weakens because there is always an opportunity to rationalize a way out. But when you create rules for yourself that are simple, direct, and absolute, your brain does not waste energy deciding what to do. It simply follows the plan. This is why the most disciplined individuals do not rely on motivation or feelings to guide their actions. They do not leave room for interpretation. They build systems that make success automatic. An unbreakable contract also includes consequences. If failure carries no real cost, it becomes easy to justify. This is why people set deadlines at work but fail to set them for personal goals. It is why people show up for appointments but skip their own commitments. When other people expect something from you, the fear of letting them down creates pressure to perform. But when the only person you answer to is yourself, it is easy to make excuses. This is why it is crucial to create self-imposed consequences that make quitting painful. If you break your own rule, there must be a price, whether it is a financial penalty, an accountability system, or a commitment that requires you to make up for lost progress. Discipline does not thrive in flexibility, it thrives in structure. The more rigid and specific your contract is, the stronger your follow-through will be. Every goal must be translated into a concrete, measurable action, and every action must be enforced by a system that eliminates the possibility of failure. When you create a contract with yourself that is simple, specific, and unbreakable, you no longer leave success up to chance. You make it inevitable. Your future is not built on hope, wishes, or fleeting motivation. It is forged through discipline, structure, and unbreakable commitments. Every action you take today is shaping the person you will become, and every excuse you make is a debt your future self will have to pay. If you rely on willpower, you will fail. If you leave room for negotiation, you will falter. The only way to ensure success is to remove the option of failure. Set clear, rigid rules for yourself. Make your commitments public. Design an environment that eliminates temptation. Shift your identity to align with the person you want to be. When you do this, discipline stops feeling like a battle and starts becoming a natural part of who you are. The path forward is not easy, but it is simple. Make a contract with your future self and refuse to break it.